For centuries, the Galactic Council had dismissed humanity as insignificant. Among the thousands of intelligent species that had spread across the stars, humans were considered the least efficient, the weakest, and the slowest. The reason was simple: humans needed 8 hours of sleep every day. Other species barely required 2 or 3, and some did not need rest at all. The great empires of the galaxy believed this biological limitation made humans unworthy of being taken seriously. While others expanded their territories at an unstoppable pace, humans wasted 1/3 of their lives unconscious. The HFY Dominion, the most powerful empire in the known universe, openly mocked them. Their warriors, bred for constant battle, believed that no species reliant on such excessive rest could ever be a threat. But they had made a grave mistake. At first, humanity's rise seemed unremarkable. Their ships were not the fastest, their soldiers were not the strongest, and their technology was not the most advanced. Yet, as the years passed, something strange happened. Human colonies flourished where others failed. Their trade routes remained stable while larger empires suffered economic collapse. Their military forces, though smaller in number, won battles against far superior opponents. The other species did not understand how humans were succeeding despite their so-called disability. But the truth was simple: humans were not slow. They were patient. Unlike other species that worked relentlessly until they burned out, humans mastered the balance between effort and recovery. They were the only species in the galaxy that understood the value of rest. While others pushed themselves to exhaustion, humans slept, planned, and executed their strategies with precision. Their scientists did not rush discoveries. They worked in cycles, ensuring their minds remained fresh. Their soldiers fought in shifts, never overextending themselves. Their leaders made long-term decisions, while others focused only on immediate gains. The HFY Dominion did not realize the danger until it was too late. By the time they declared war on humanity, human forces had already expanded beyond what the Dominion thought possible. The HFY believed they could crush them in mere weeks. They launched a full-scale invasion, sending fleets to every human-controlled system, expecting them to collapse under pressure. But what they did not expect was a war unlike any they had ever fought before. The HFY fought like they always had, without rest, without pause, without strategy beyond brute force. Their fleets pushed forward relentlessly, their soldiers fought until exhaustion, and their commanders made rash decisions in the heat of battle. But the humans did not fight like them. They fought smart. Every battle was planned to perfection, every engagement executed with timing so precise that the HFY could not understand how they were always outmaneuvered. Whenever the Dominion thought they had gained the upper hand, human reinforcements arrived at the perfect moment, fresh and ready, while HFY warriors were wary and sluggish. The humans rotated their forces, ensuring that their soldiers were always at peak performance. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and soon the HFY found themselves trapped in a war they could not win. Their fleets, once thought to be invincible, started falling apart not because the humans had better weapons, but because the HFY had exhausted themselves. Their warriors, deprived of sleep, made reckless mistakes. Their ships, running on overworked crews, became slow and inefficient. Their generals, blinded by arrogance, could not understand why every battle was turning against them. The humans did not fight harder, they fought smarter. And, in the end, that made all the difference. The war reached its climax when the HFY made one final desperate attempt to crush humanity. They gathered their remaining forces for an all-out assault on Earth itself, believing that a direct strike would force humanity to surrender. But when they arrived, the trap had already been set. The humans had been waiting. With every move anticipated, every countermeasure prepared, the HFY fleet found itself surrounded by a force that had already predicted their every action. What should have been their greatest victory turned into their worst defeat. Within days, the HFY Dominion collapsed. Their leaders surrendered, their fleets were dismantled, and their empire, which had ruled the galaxy for centuries, was no more. In the aftermath, the Galactic Council finally acknowledged the truth. Humanity was no longer the weakest species. They were no longer dismissed as inefficient or unworthy. They were the masters of strategy, patience, and endurance. They had proven that victory did not belong to the strongest or the fastest, but to those who understood when to fight, when to rest, and when to strike. The rest of the galaxy could only watch in awe as humanity, once mocked for its need to sleep 8 hours every day, now stood as the rulers of the stars. And they had done it all without ever losing a single night of sleep. For centuries, the galaxy had known its rulers. The HFY Dominion, the Vroken Empire, and the Syndicate of Kalos had shaped the fate of countless civilizations. They were the giants of the stars, their fleets stretching across thousands of systems, their technology unmatched, their power unquestioned. When humanity emerged, no one paid them any attention. A species from a small, insignificant world bound by slow biological rhythms, requiring rest, food, and an inefficient 8 hours of sleep every day. How could they possibly compete? The Galactic Council barely considered them worthy of recognition. Other species conquered entire star systems in mere decades, while humans took years just to establish a single colony. The verdict was clear: humanity was weak, slow, and utterly unremarkable. But then something happened that no one could explain. In just 2 centuries, humanity spread across the stars at an impossible rate. Their colonies thrived where others failed. Their influence grew at a pace that defied every known law of expansion. They took worlds that had been abandoned for centuries, terraformed barren planets with breathtaking efficiency, and built thriving civilizations in the harshest environments. Other species dismissed it as luck at first. They believed that humans were simply fortunate, stumbling upon resource-rich worlds. But as the years passed, it became impossible to ignore. Humanity was expanding faster than any species before them, not because of luck, not because of superior technology, but because of something far more dangerous: their unstoppable will to adapt. The Galactic Council grew uneasy. The great empires that once ridiculed humanity now watched them with suspicion. The Vroken Empire, a race of warlords who prided themselves on strength and conquest, sent scouts to observe human colonies. What they saw shook them to their core. Unlike other species, humans did not rely on brute force to expand. They did not burn out their resources in reckless conquest. Instead, they worked in shifts, using their biological need for rest as a weapon. While other species struggled to sustain their war efforts due to exhaustion and inefficiency, humanity had perfected a system of rotation, endurance, and long-term planning. Their workers operated in cycles, ensuring that there was never a moment of weakness in their production lines. Their soldiers fought in shifts, ensuring that they were always rested and ready. Their scientists, instead of chasing immediate results, planned projects that spanned decades, resulting in breakthroughs that changed the course of history. The more the other empires studied humanity, the more they feared them. The HFY Dominion, rulers of the largest military force in the galaxy, were the first to realize the danger. They had crushed dozens of civilizations that had tried to expand too fast, but humanity was different. No matter how many obstacles were placed in their way, humans did not slow down. They built alliances where others made enemies. They negotiated trade deals that strengthened their economy without resorting to war. Their technology, though not the most advanced, was designed to last. Their ships required less maintenance. Their weapons were easy to repair, and their infrastructure could withstand disasters that would cripple other civilizations. The HFY saw what was happening and made a decision. Humanity had to be stopped before it was too late. The first attack came without warning. A fleet of HFY warships descended upon a newly established human colony, expecting an easy victory. The colony was young, its defenses still incomplete, its people untrained for war. By all logic, it should have been wiped out in days. But humans did not fight like other species. Instead of panicking, they adapted. They used their knowledge of terrain to set ambushes, turning the very land against their enemies. They built defenses overnight, working in shifts, ensuring that no one was ever too exhausted to fight. Every time the HFY thought they had broken human resistance, fresh soldiers emerged, taking the place of the fallen. The HFY, who had never encountered an enemy that rested, recovered, and struck back stronger, were completely unprepared for this kind of war. Weeks passed, then months. The Excelthor's invasion force, once unstoppable, began to falter. Their warriors, who prided themselves on their endurance, started making mistakes. Their commanders, who never allowed themselves to sleep, grew careless. Meanwhile, the humans only became more efficient. They studied their enemies' weaknesses. They rotated their fighters in perfect cycles, ensuring that there was never a single moment of vulnerability. When the final Excelthor warship retreated, the rest of the galaxy watched in stunned silence. The impossible had happened. A species that needed 8 hours of sleep every day had defeated one of the greatest military powers in existence. But humanity was not done. Their expansion did not slow. They continued to spread, taking the stars one system at a time, never rushing, never making reckless moves. The Vroken, the Syndicate of Kalos, and every other empire that had once mocked them now faced a terrifying truth. Humanity was inevitable. They were not the strongest nor the fastest, but they were the most efficient, the most patient, and the most unstoppable force the galaxy had ever seen. While others burned themselves out chasing short-term victories, humanity played the long game, and they were winning. By the time the Galactic Council finally recognized their power, it was too late to stop them. Humanity had expanded beyond control, beyond expectation, beyond fear. And as the rulers of the galaxy looked upon the ever-growing reach of the human race, they realized a terrifying truth. Nothing could stop the impossible human expansion. For centuries, the Excelthor Dominion had ruled the galaxy with an iron fist. Their war fleets were unmatched, their soldiers bred for battle, their technology superior to all others. They had crushed entire civilizations, wiped out countless species that dared to resist, and expanded their empire across thousands of star systems. To them, war was a simple equation: strength determined victory, and weakness meant extinction. When humanity entered the galactic stage, the Excelthor barely acknowledged them. A species from a single insignificant planet, slow to expand, physically weaker than most, and foolishly reliant on long hours of sleep, what possible threat could they pose? The Dominion did not realize that their greatest mistake was underestimating humanity. At first, humanity's rise seemed unremarkable. Their colonies grew steadily but did not challenge the might of the Excelthor. Their technology was practical but not revolutionary. Their ships were sturdy but lacked the overwhelming firepower of Excelthor war cruisers. The Dominion watched them with mild amusement, believing that humans would remain a minor species, forever insignificant in the grand scheme of the galaxy. But then something changed. Humans did not conquer through brute force. They conquered through patience, strategy, and adaptability. Where other species burned out in endless wars, humanity focused on building alliances, strengthening economies, and perfecting their tactics. They did not waste resources on reckless conquests, but instead prepared, learned, and waited for the perfect moment to strike. The Excelthor should have noticed the signs. Human fleets, though smaller, were always positioned at key locations, controlling vital trade routes. Their soldiers, though physically weaker, fought with precision, as if they knew exactly where and when to strike. Their technology, though less advanced, was designed for endurance. While Excelthor warships required constant repairs, human vessels could operate for years without major maintenance. Every human victory seemed calculated, as if they had planned it long before the battle even began. But the Dominion, blinded by arrogance, refused to acknowledge the growing threat. Then came the war that would change everything. The Excelthor, believing themselves invincible, launched an invasion against human space, expecting an easy victory. Their fleets, massive and unstoppable, descended upon human colonies, believing they would fall within weeks. But humanity had been waiting for this moment. The Dominion's strategy was predictable: overwhelming force, swift attacks, and no room for retreat. It had worked against countless species before, but against humans, it failed spectacularly. Instead of meeting the Excelthor head-on, humanity did something no one expected. They let them advance. The Excelthor fleets swept across human space, taking system after system with little resistance. They believed the war was already won. But then the real battle began. The moment the Excelthor had overextended, humanity struck back with terrifying efficiency. They cut off supply lines, isolated enemy fleets, and launched counterattacks with perfectly timed precision. Every battle seemed like a trap, every victory a step deeper into human territory, where reinforcements were always ready and fresh. While the Exelthar warriors exhausted themselves in constant battles, human forces rotated shifts, ensuring they were always rested, always prepared, and always thinking 10 steps ahead. What should have been a swift conquest turned into a nightmare for the Dominion. Their fleets, once the terror of the galaxy, began to crumble. Their soldiers, pushed beyond their limits, started making mistakes. Their commanders, arrogant and overconfident, failed to adapt. Meanwhile, humanity only grew stronger. They studied their enemies, learning their weaknesses, exploiting their overconfidence, and countering every move with flawless precision. The war, once thought to be an easy victory for the Dominion, became a slow and brutal collapse. Then came the final blow. The Exelthar, desperate and on the brink of defeat, gathered their remaining forces for a last stand, a desperate attempt to regain control. They amassed their largest fleet in history, believing that if they could crush humanity in one final battle, they could still win. But they were walking into their own doom. Humanity had already predicted this move. They had waited, prepared, and now they were ready to end the war once and for all. When the Exelthar fleet arrived at what they believed to be the battlefield, they found nothing but silence. Then, from the darkness of space, the human armada emerged. It was not a chaotic battle. It was a massacre. Every human ship was positioned with mathematical precision, every move executed with chilling efficiency. The Exelthar, once the masters of war, found themselves outmaneuvered, outgunned, and completely overwhelmed. Their warships, built for brute force, were torn apart by human tactics. Their commanders, who had never known true defeat, watched in horror as their forces were wiped out with cold, calculated precision. By the end of the battle, the mighty Exelthar Dominion no longer existed. Their empire, once the most powerful in the galaxy, lay in ruins. Their rulers surrendered, their armies shattered, and their fleets reduced to wreckage drifting through space. The species that had once ruled through fear and strength had been brought to its knees by patience, intelligence, and an enemy they had underestimated from the start. As the last remnants of the Dominion collapsed, the rest of the galaxy could only watch in stunned silence. The species they had once mocked as weak, slow, and unremarkable had just defeated the greatest military power in history. Humanity, once ignored, had become the new rulers of the stars. Not because they were the strongest, not because they were the fastest, but because they were the smartest, the most adaptable, and the most relentless force the galaxy had ever seen. The lesson was clear: never underestimate humanity. For centuries, the great empires of the galaxy had believed a lie. They believed that power was measured by physical strength, that dominance came from superior numbers, and that only the most advanced civilizations could rule the stars. The Galactic Council, an alliance of the oldest and most powerful species, had long considered themselves the pinnacle of evolution. They had conquered planets, crushed rebellions, and silenced any threat to their supremacy. But there was one species they had never truly understood: humans. At first, humanity was dismissed as insignificant. They had no extraordinary abilities, no natural armor, no psychic powers. They needed oxygen to survive, food to sustain themselves, and sleep to function. Compared to the great warriors of the Exelthar Dominion or the technological masterminds of the Syndicate of Kalos, humans seemed unimpressive. Even when they expanded into the stars, the Council believed it was only a matter of time before they were absorbed or destroyed like so many others. But then, something strange happened. Humanity refused to fall. First, the galaxy ignored the signs. Human colonies spread across the void, thriving in conditions no other species could tolerate. They built settlements in frozen wastelands, scorching deserts, and toxic atmospheres. While other species relied on perfect conditions, humans adapted. When wars broke out, they did not fight recklessly like the Exelthar or rely on overwhelming numbers like the Droken Horde. Instead, they used strategy, patience, and something the galaxy had never encountered before. The Galactic Council watched with growing unease. Every empire that had once challenged humanity had either fallen or made peace. The great HFY Dominion, the once unbreakable warlords, had been completely annihilated. The Syndicate of Kalos, who once held a monopoly on advanced technology, now found themselves buying human innovations instead. The Droken Horde, infamous for their brutality, had suffered defeat after defeat until they were forced into uneasy truces. The council gathered in secret meetings, trying to understand what was happening. How had a species with no special abilities, no ancient empire, and no overwhelming numbers managed to surpass them all? They searched for answers, looking for hidden alliances, secret technologies, or unknown weaknesses. But the more they searched, the more they realized the truth: humanity had won not because of power, but because of something far more terrifying: their sheer, unstoppable will to survive and thrive. The final proof came in a way no one expected. The council, desperate to find an answer, ordered a covert study of human history. They wanted to know what made this species so dangerous, what had shaped them into conquerors. What they found sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Unlike other species, who had evolved in relative stability, humanity had been forged in chaos. Their homeworld, Earth, was a planet of extremes, devastating storms, lethal predators, unrelenting diseases, and constant conflicts. While other species had evolved in balance with nature, humans had fought against it every step of the way. They had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and disasters that would have driven any other species to extinction. They had faced annihilation countless times, yet each time they endured, adapted, and came back stronger. The council's scientists reviewed thousands of human historical records, and what they found horrified them. Humans had lived through ages where entire nations burned, where weapons could end the world, and where civilizations had collapsed into ruin, and yet they had always rebuilt. They had suffered, fought, and endured pain on a scale the galaxy had never seen. And through it all, they had never given up. This was why their soldiers never surrendered, why their fleets never retreated, why their empires never collapsed. It was not luck, not superior technology, not natural strength. It was sheer, unbreakable determination. When this knowledge spread across the galaxy, panic set in. The other species, who had once seen humans as nothing more than another civilization, began to fear them. They realized that humanity was not just another empire; they were something new, something unstoppable. Unlike the HFY, they did not rule through fear. Unlike the Syndicate of Kalos, they did not rely on technology alone. Unlike the Droken Horde, they did not burn themselves out in endless wars. They fought smart, they fought hard, and they never stopped moving forward. It was no longer a question of whether humanity would dominate the galaxy. It was already happening. The last remnants of resistance fell, not through war, but through inevitability. Humanity had already won, simply because they were the only ones who refused to accept defeat. As the council members sat in their chambers, staring at the reports of human expansion, trade dominance, and military victories, they realized the terrible truth. The galaxy had always belonged to the strongest. And now, the strongest species had finally revealed itself. Humanity was not just another empire. They were the future. And there was nothing anyone could do to stop them.